Okay, so welcome everybody and thanks for coming back for a brand new episode. So I'm really excited today. I'm going to introduce someone very, very special to you all. Now his name is Jeremy Duncan. Now he's got 20 years of experience specializing in ServiceNow since 2011. Now Jeremy is a certified master architect who approaches every business engagement with a focus on purpose, innovation, humility, and leadership. So, Jeremy, a huge thank you for coming on today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Farrah. It's very nice.
No, that's fantastic. Honestly, the honor is all mine. And do you know what? I was very excited when I met you at Knowledge in Vegas. I especially loved your very, very cool backpack that you had. So it was really the star attraction. How was your Knowledge?
It hangs out by the desk.
Whoa! Is it switched on?
No, it's not.
Oh,
I should have prepared better.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Well, anyway, for all the listeners that are not on YouTube, Jeremy just picked up his backpack, but it wasn't switched on, so that's fine. So how was the rest of your Vegas trip? I mean, I know we were talking a little bit off air, but it'll be cool to hear on air, like, how was the rest of your Knowledge?
It's great. I mean, I've had the pleasure of attending Knowledge since 2013.
Wow.
I did miss a couple here and there, just because of my roles changing, and but I got to speak in 2013, and it was just an eye-opening experience. And that was at the Aria in Vegas, and I think there was a whopping 2,600 people there, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, so to go from 2,600 to 23,000 plus, it's definitely changed a lot, right? The feel is definitely different when you have that many people there. But I will say different in a good way. It's just so energizing. It's crazy, the energy that's in the room at that event. So it's something I look forward to every single year. No matter where they hold it, I want to be there. So definitely looking forward to Knowledge 25. It's going to be great.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And, you know, like, I think it's so interesting because obviously you started your journey in ServiceNow in 2011, which is really early on. So, like, for anybody who doesn't know who you are or anything about your background, would you be kind enough just to kind of explain to us, you know, a little bit about your background journey, how you first got introduced to ServiceNow in 2011 and, you know, how you've achieved such great success to be in the position you are today?
Sure. The success is really just blessings upon blessings in my life. I don't feel like I have earned what I get to do right now. So I definitely try not to take what I do for granted. But I've always been a geek. I've always been, since high school, I was always the kid that everybody would say, hey, Jeremy will fix your computer, or Jeremy will do that. And so that turned into a business, just a small business where I would go and fix everybody's computers, right? And it wasn't enough to make a living. It was just enough to get me through college. And so after a couple of years in community college, I got my associate's degree, and I was always working. I always, had a hustle, always doing something. And so I wanted to get right to work. So I went to work for Dell Computer Corporation. Was probably my first major, big boy career job, I guess. And then moved on to other places from there. And then it was 2011. I was working at Lifeway Christian Resources in Nashville. I was working down in the data center, wearing my jacket every day to work, no matter whether it was cold outside or it was 90 degrees outside in the summertime, because in a data center, it's pretty cold, right? I usually keep it, I guess, right below 70, just to keep everything dry and cool, right? Keep all the servers cool. And so I learned a lot in that job. I got to hang out with some of the smartest people I've ever worked with in my life. I learned a lot, and I always was saying yes to everything, right? My boss, I think he saw the fire in my eyes, and he said, hey, there's this guy, he'll do anything you throw at him. And so I did information security for a while. So I was managing web application firewalls. I was helping guys rack and stack servers. I was learning a lot about networking and network security. I ended up getting some certifications around information security and fell in love with that. And then all the world started to come together, right? My boss started to realize how process oriented I was, and how I don't know the polite way to say it, I was pretty anal retentive about like getting things done, and how do we make things better. And so I was constantly on him about how do we do this. And so he came to me one day and said, "Hey, we went to a Gartner conference. We have decided to invest in using ServiceNow as our service management tool, and we're going to move off of, it was Lotus Notes at the time." And so he said, "Are you up for the challenge of helping us out with that implementation and being a part of it?" And so myself and a gentleman named Benny Hawk, who is actually still at Lifeway today, we paired up and took it on. And it was the summer of 2011 release, I believe. And then we went live with Aspen. From that day forward, I knew that ServiceNow was something I wanted to invest my time in heavily. I'd done everything else, right? I'd touched every form of technology, whether it be hardware, software, even stuff in the middle, and I just fell in love with it. Knew it was something I wanted to continue to do. So I moved on and went to other companies and implemented it as the customer. And then a friend of mine said, "Hey, you should come work for this partner company out of New York." And I was like, "I've never thought about doing that before." And I always went into work every day, drove to work, and it was a work from home job. I was like, "Whoa, this is before COVID. This is before work from home became like a necessity for folks." But yeah, so I got the opportunity to do that, and then 5 years ago, I was asked to come work for ServiceNow. So, 13-year journey, different roles and responsibilities along the way, and I just consider myself honored and blessed to even be able to be here today doing what I get to do on the team that I work for here at ServiceNow. It's pretty incredible.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And what was it about ServiceNow, like really back in the day, that you just fell in love with, and you were like, what, I found it in my life. What was it?
I could make it mine. I could make the tool. Although, we were, I say tool, platform really. At the time, it was probably more of a tool. But Fred Luddy knew better than I did, and actually provided a platform that we could get many different things done with. I love the fact that I could innovate and do anything that I put my mind to. As I mentioned, I was in the middle of vulnerability, learning about vulnerability remediation and information security. And we were using another tool to do vulnerability scans and remediation. And I thought, well, what if we use ServiceNow for that? Because we were using it for other IT stuff, but there wasn't really a GRC, and SecOps didn't exist back then. So those platform features didn't exist. And I was like, what if we used it to manage our CVE scores, our vector scores? And there was this calculation that you'd have to do online on the NIST website, and it's called environmental or temporal scoring. And I would go out there and enter these values for the servers that we had, and reduce our score. So it might come in, a vector score, or a risk score might come in from our vulnerability scan and say, hey, this is a critical or a high risk thing, you need to go look at it. And you can only imagine in a large enterprise, like how many of those you're going to see, right? And some of those can be reduced based on environmental factors, and you have to calculate that. You can't it's not, you just don't know that. You have to calculate it and prove it. And if there's one thing I learned from Dr. Eric Coles in my SANS training, he said, if we spend time looking at golf ball size holes, and more time than looking at the basketball size holes, then we're going to miss the big ones, right? And so we got to get the little stuff out of the way. And sometimes this little stuff shows up as big stuff on the radar. So you would use this scoring to help you recognize that. And so I built it in Excel. I built this formula in Excel and was calculating this. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I'll just use ServiceNow for that, right? And so I built a prototype of that. And when I was able to do that, and not being like a hardcore developer and still am not, I say at the time, but I was going to say at the time, but I'm still not a hardcore developer. But at the time, I was like, I don't really know build this in a white space. I can't code this. I don't know. I can build functions in Excel, but I can't really code this. And so to be able to go build it on the platform and accomplish what I did, the light came on. I was like, this is something I want to do every single day. And so because of that, fast forward 13 years later, the many different things I've been able to solve, right? There's some hints behind me, and I've even been posting on LinkedIn lately about IoT, seeing people get reinvigorated about the IoT space. We've done some really cool things and proven some really cool things on the platform. So because that continues and it's not just a humdrum, yeah, we can do IT better. Let's go do change management. Let's go do incident. That's fine. That's great. That's just core ServiceNow platform stuff. But when you start unlocking creator workflows and the ability to use App Engine to be able to use just these amazing tools that are at our fingertips to build whatever you set your mind to, like, to me, Farrah, that's what drives the love and the passion for my job every day and for the product that I get to sell. So
No, that's
love it.
incredible. Yeah, that's amazing. And for anybody that's new to the ServiceNow industry, where can they learn, like, gain the knowledge that you have, to kind of, really further their career as well?
Yeah, our Now Learning site is the best place to start. Find a friend too. Find someone to help mentor you along your journey, because Now Learning has paths that are set out for different personas, right? Whether you want to be a ServiceNow admin, whether you want to be a ServiceNow developer, if you want to be an architect. We've even got stuff for designers out there. There are many different job opportunities in the ServiceNow ecosystem, whether on the partner side or within ServiceNow's four walls. But yeah, I would start with Now Learning, and I think having that mentor along the way to help you connect the dots is really important. I've been able to spend a lot of time with some mentees of mine, one who now works for GlideFast. I'm so grateful for him to have that opportunity. When we started, it was on this whiteboard over here with just a simple scenario. He was a military guy, and he goes, "I want what you've got." I said, "Whoa, what do you mean?" I don't know. I don't know if you're. What do you mean? He's like, "No, I want the joy. I want the happiness. I see what you have in your job, and I want that." I said, "Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's start." And so he started on our NextGen. He was fortunate enough to be able to join our NextGen program, and I would look out for that too, because with Rise Up, with NextGen, there are multiple opportunities to be able to get free training, access to free training, but there's also, of course, paid training out there that you can get if that's not available to you. So Now Learning, definitely a big thing. But anyways, back to Chris real quick to round that story out. The friend will help you navigate the whys, right? You can be book smart. You can learn something, but if you have a friend that helps educate you on, well, okay, I understand that there's like these tables and there's these flows and this, but what does that mean, right? For somebody who's fresh to the technology space, because Chris, my buddy, like, he wasn't a technologist, right? He's smart, super smart, right? He's got his MBA, super smart dude, and has a lot of experience, but primarily law enforcement and military. That's his background. But he's got project management experience, so he's super smart guy. So you can take the knowledge that you have in other careers and apply that into a tech career. You just got to find the right way to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so on this whiteboard, and I said, "Chris, tell me about a scenario in your life, whether it was when you're in law enforcement, whether you were in the military, about like something you would fix with technology. Like if you had a tool to fix it, give me that scenario." And so when he gave me the scenario, which was, by the way, just a classic hardware asset management scenario, but it was a different hardware. It was military hardware. We were able to walk through that and talk about the CMDB, talk about some of the core platform capabilities that help people do those jobs. And when that light bulb went off, it was I loved it. It's awesome to see people get it, right? And when they get it, like I did 13 years ago, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. You mean I could fix that? I say, yes. Not only do I believe you could fix that problem, but we're going to go open your PDI, because he was in the middle of his training. We're going to open up your PDI, and we're going to go create some tables, and we're going to go create some flows, and we're going to show you how you can fix that, right? So to have something like that at your fingertips is pretty powerful. So now learning, back to that, to round that out, now learning will help you get there, right? Now learning will get you started. It'll get you on a path, and then open up the doors for other opportunities for you to learn.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I love that story. And do you know what I really love about that story as well, particularly, is the fact that, it said, oh, I want to be like you. I want your passion, and, I think that comes a lot from mindset, it comes from like your attitude, how do you get your mindset to that point where, you always have that passion, you're positive, you don't let other people be negative and, and kind of like tarnish that almost? Like, what would you say, like, to others?
Not to sound corny, but I mean, a lot of that's my faith. I follow a faith that focuses on love first, and let's get the record straight. I'm not always positive. I'm not always a peach. I have my moments where, plenty of moments where I get frustrated, and I get, I get beside myself with either, professionalism issues that I see in the workplace, or even just a frustrating like work. I'm in the middle of something that's technically hard. I have my moments, but I will say what drives me is my faith, the concept of loving others first. I mean, that's what I'm commanded to do, and so that's a choice that I make every day, is to try to do that, right? To love others, but really in my job ecosystem. So what you see here at work is really just a pure joy for what I get to do, right? But to keep my mind healthy as well. Spending time with my family is another source of joy for me. We like to do things together. So I've got a son that plays baseball. I coach every season. He's going into 10U baseball. I've been coaching him since 6U. My daughter is a competition dancer, so we go do that, multiple weeks throughout the year. So just spending time as a family also re-energizes me as well. Just so many different things outside of work that bring joy to my life. But then, you tack on having a career that you just love, that you've latched onto, that doesn't really suck the life out of you. It's great. It's great. I spent some time in law enforcement. Just a fun fact about my background. I was 10 years. I was a reserve police officer. So I did this job. I did technology as a living, but on the weekends, some nights throughout the week, randomly I would go in and work. But as a reserve officer, I would either be available for like major like city issues, traffic direction, like major incidents, or just when I wanted to, just volunteer. So I would go in, for a shift, and I would work, and I would hop in a patrol car, and I would go out and arrest bad guys and girls, and then come home and do this. So that brought a lot of joy in my life too. But it also a high point for stress as well, because that's a stressful job. That's a stressful life. I don't envy those who do that full time. I have a lot of respect for the men and women in law enforcement to deal with what they deal with every single day. And I think having perspective, so there's a point to that. Having perspective through the lens of seeing another career firsthand, doing that, being in law enforcement, seeing what they go through, and telling myself, these guys and gals have to wake up, put that heavy suit of armor on every single day, and go out into the public, put on a smiling face, and deal with what they deal with. Like, that's some perspective for you, right? That's an eye opener. So when I sit here in the air conditioning and I get to bang away at my keyboard and I get to make magic happen for many different other, professions, right? Because I've done ServiceNow builds for law enforcement. I've done it for the military. I've done it for commercial space, like many different examples across the enterprise, across the business, we've done ServiceNow examples for. And so the perspective really helps me, right? And helps feed some of that energy as well. So it's really just a lot that comes together that I can't really put my finger on one thing, but definitely a lot of things that culminate into just really being blessed and honored to have a good career and a good life, right? Better than I
Yeah.
deserve, probably.
No, no, honestly, like I think it's amazing that, you do find that joy in life, and I just love the fact that you do this as well, like the law enforcement as well. And I think it's totally right how you say, like, it brings perspective into things. And I think, particularly for people coming into the NextGen or the Rise Up program, they've had, maybe some of them have had, a lot of them had careers beforehand, and, it's a case that, it will be applied, and it will be applicable, in what you do in ServiceNow. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. So, that's brilliant. And, in terms of, because obviously you've done a CMA, which is amazing and incredible. For anyone who's looking, okay, like, what ServiceNow certifications should I do? What do you recommend?
It really depends on what you want to do with your career. If you're a person that likes to understand a business challenge and turn that into a requirement that someone would go build, then a business process analyst or consultant would be a great job for you. If you're, and I went through this discussion with Chris as well when we were looking for what type of job opportunity he would want to go for, because there's sales, there's implementation, there's pre-sales and post-sales, and there are a lot of different things. But having his MBA, I was thinking project management. I'm like, this guy could manage any project, whether it's building a tall building or a software application. Like, so the PMs of the world, like, hey, I'm shouting at all of you. They're engagement manager roles. There are lots of those out there, right? We have many engagements with customers implementing ServiceNow. You could go out and PM that to death. There's technical. Obviously, if you're in the technical landscape, learning JavaScript and applying your development skills on the platform definitely needed. If you're really process oriented and you think like a workflow would flow, if this then that. If this, then that, right? Get stuck in a loop, how to try to solve for something. Like, if you think that way, you could build workflows. You could build catalog items without even having to have any coding experience on our platform. So whether you're, again, process minded, whether you're very detail oriented, again, there are opportunities. That's why I say find a friend, because when you start the training process, you want to connect the dots with a career path that's really applicable to what your capabilities are, right? And really someone who would kind of find the intangibles in you. That's a Michael Lombardo thing. I love, when I was talking to him about, looking for good talent, he mentioned the intangibles, right? Those are the things that you see in people that they don't see in themselves, that you could latch onto and say, hey, but I've noticed that you're really good at this, right? And I do want to say, just a shout out to my 13 years ago boss, Jim Garrett. Actually, he was my boss several years later because he rehired me at another company. But he's the one that handed ServiceNow. Jim Garrett's the one that handed ServiceNow over to me. He saw some intangibles in me when I sat in his office one day. And I was telling him, I said, man, I want to be the ace in the hole. I want to be the guy that goes and does whatever, right? X. I don't want to be the XYZ guy. I want to be the X guy. And he was like, why? He's like, what's the motivating factor for that? I said, because I like to be the dependable person. I like to be the one that people depend on for this thing. I probably suffer from codependency issues. I'll just go ahead and be the first to admit that. So I wanted to be codependent to the max. And he said, Jeremy, as a utility, he called me a utilitarian. He goes, you're kind of like a Swiss Army knife, right? I know I can pull this thing out and you could go do this or you could go do that. He goes, I like you in that space. He said, now listen, I can't convince you to be one way or the other. You're going to be how you want to be. But I see some things. My whole point there is he saw some intangible. He saw some things in me that enabled me to have a path that I have today, which involves doing many different things. So find a friend as you're navigating your career options, and find someone who would invest that time in you and get you the help that you need to get to that job. So back to other opportunities. I mentioned technical and non-technical opportunities, and then there's just sales, right? Whether you've sold concrete, whether you've sold bridges to nowhere, whatever, the world needs good sales folks that can convince people that they need what we have. The beautiful thing about ServiceNow, I think ServiceNow is the easiest sales job on the planet, because if you know our product, if you've used our product, if you've been the recipient of our product in your space, you know that it works. So if you want to believe in what you sell and you're a salesperson, by all means, come into the ServiceNow ecosystem, because this is a great product to sell, right? Once you drink the Kool-Aid, you're addicted. And so, anyways, I've mentioned many different opportunities, different paths. I mean, I think the opportunities are endless in our ecosystem. Some people would look at it and say, "Oh, it's just a software company. I'm not techie. I could never do it." Well, I have proof that that's not the case, and anyone has an opportunity to be successful. But if you don't believe in yourself, if you're not motivated to go get it, it'll never happen. Because I've seen lots of people in our NextGen program who don't put the effort in and think that someone's going to hand them a career opportunity and they're going to go make six figures, and they couldn't be more wrong about that. And those people go off and find another job, right? I've seen it happen too many times. So I would say if you get the opportunity and the blessing to be a part of a NextGen program or for some free training or whatever, I would recommend that you embrace that, right? And give it your all, because it is a great opportunity. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like, nothing comes for free in life, right? So if you do want something, yeah, absolutely, you've got to have the determination, the ambition, but also at the same time, it's exactly what you said. You've got to put the effort in and put the hard work in, and be blessed, like you say, you will be. So, so I think that's fantastic advice. So, obviously I met you in Vegas, and, you're very humble. You're very down to earth. You're very, very approachable. It was really easy to kind of talk to you. It was the first time that we'd actually met, in person. So how do you, because obviously I can tell that, you've been a very ambitious person. How do you manage being highly ambitious with at the same time being able to stay grounded, so that, you don't kind of get arrogant, or do you know what I mean? You don't kind of like lose yourself.
I don't, I find it interesting when they approach me, they say, Hey, I know you're, some people will know my name and some people don't. It's fine. They're like, you're LinkedIn famous. And I'm like, well, I follow and am friends with people like Brian Solis, right? He's an employee here at ServiceNow, leading our AI charge. And I got to know him and spend some time with him, and we collaborate on some things. And that guy's got like 350,000 followers on LinkedIn. I've got like 100 followers on LinkedIn. So I wouldn't really consider myself LinkedIn famous, but or famous in any respects. But all I can say is like it's cool. Like I love it when people approach me and people like want to say hi or hug it out or high five or have a in-depth conversation about life. I mean, I've had some of those on the on the showroom floor, even about being a dad and things like that. The thing is, I'm energized by people. So I guess that would make me an extrovert. What's interesting is I really have to have some time alone too to re-energize. So I feel like I'm like a mixture of both. But I definitely enjoy people. I love being around folks. I help lead worship at church, and sometimes that's in front of thousands of people at a time, and it used to scare me. It used to get me, super excited, like I'd be nervous, but anymore it doesn't. It's because one of my employers many years ago. He leases buses still to this day. I remember when he started the company, I worked for him when he was really early on. He leases buses to entertainer performers. So like the Taylor Swifts of the world and stuff, when they go on their tour buses, his company is one of the many out there that leases to them. And I remember when like Trace Atkins walked into his office one day at Little Big Town, other artists walked into his office, and I was like, dude, how do you do that? Like, these people are like sitting in front of you, and they go sing in front of thousands of people. And he said, man, Trace puts his pants on the same way I do every day, one leg at a time. We're the same. Yeah, I give him all due respect as an artist, but I'm not going to like fawn over myself because he walked into the room. I'm going to treat him just like I would anybody else in business. And so that stuck with me, right? That little moment, that little lesson stuck with me. I'm like, you know what? No matter what, everybody's due their respect, right? So if the president of the United States walks in, obviously with all due respect, ma'am or sir, right? But at the end of the day, my heart's not going to start pounding differently. I'm not going to, oh my gosh, because at the end of the day, we're all here together. We're all humans. We all bring, different elements to life, unique elements that make each person, unique and special and awesome. And so for me, like, to stay grounded, I don't ever feel like I got off the ground or that I've even gotten close to feeling above anyone. So for me, it's just a part of life, right? It's just a part of my foundation. So I've never really felt like I'm above. And if I start to feel that way, I have to remind myself, like, hey, dude, like, you're nothing. Like, I'll tell you this, like, in the technology landscape, you can be humbled every single day by someone smarter than you. Like, there are plenty of people out there that could run circles around me technologically. Sure, I've got my master architect, I've got experience, I've done all these different things. Big deal. There are a lot of people out there that don't have their master architect certification, that don't have a single ServiceNow certification, that could run circles around me technologically. It's just, again, everybody's due their respect. And so for me, I think the lesson that I learned a long time ago was, hey, we're all created equally. We all have an opportunity to be successful in life. And no matter where you're at in life, whether you're on the hill or in the valley, it doesn't matter. Like, we're all here. We're all experiencing life together. So, yeah. I mean, that's really what does it for me. So if you walk up and want to have a conversation, I'm not thinking in my mind, oh, well, who's this Farrah? How many followers does she have? What's her podcast? Yeah. I don't think that way because it's not necessary. Who cares, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who cares? Like, unless I'm on the way to the, dinner or something and I'm super hungry, but even then I'd probably still stop, and say, hey, well, let's go to dinner together, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't know. There's a lot that goes into that, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I like people, and I appreciate people for who they are, because again, I look at us all; we're all the same,
I think that's wonderful. I think that's amazing. So, look, my final question, okay? Yeah. If you could go back in a time machine, and talk to your 21-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
invest more money in ServiceNow stock. That was back then.
That's a good
This is
one.
this is not financial advice for anyone today. I'm not saying that, but
Yeah.
no, in all seriousness, my 21-year-old self, it's one thing that I continue to tell my 39-year-old self. So 18 years later, is take more risks. My little brother was sitting here in my office with me one day. He's 6 years younger than me, and he's done a lot of different, career things and musically and things, and he was looking for a change, right? He has no kids. He's single, and we were just talking, about opportunities, and he was thinking about starting a business, a gaming card business. Was actually buying a business, like taking over one that he had been working for a couple of years. And he's like, "Hey, I have an opportunity to buy this company. What do you think?" I was like, and I'm thinking, "Hey, here's me talking to my younger self. Like, what would I say? Take more risks. If you're 21 and you don't have things that you could lose that would devastate you, because let's face it, if you got a family, you got assets, you have things, a house that, maybe you've got some equity in. Look, it's scary taking a risk, right? And without risk, there's usually not as much reward. So I tell younger people, take risks, because you can fail early in life and pick yourself back up and restart again and start a new journey if that doesn't work out, right? You take more risks now. Because I told my little brother, I said, "Man, what if your business fails? What's the worst thing that could happen?" Right? And I know what we're all thinking, right? Big deal. Start another business. Try something else. Here's the deal. I have 3 kids now. I have one in dance, one in baseball. I've got another little 4-year-old that's about to start her ballet journey. She's playing piano. Like, we're about to get her in piano lessons if we feel like she's old enough to be able to care about it enough. Those are responsibilities. Those are 3 little responsibilities. I have a beautiful wife that I support. My wife stays at home, right? That's her career. By the way, talk about smart people. Like, she's got her master's degree. She's way smarter than I am. I got my bachelor's is where I stopped. And so here's my point. Like, at this point, it's really hard to just throw caution to the wind and be risky with everything I have right now. Because I got a lot to hold up. I got to be a dad. I got to be a husband. I got to be a provider and a leader in my home. At 21 years old, you're usually not dealing with that.
Yeah.
You're usually dealing with, what college am I going to finish? What am I going to do? Take risks. And the last thing, I know you asked me the one thing, but I'd say there's one other thing. Do what you love and love what you do, no matter what. I don't care if it's a 6-figure job, if it's a 5-figure, 4-figure, whatever it is. Like, you need to live. Obviously, you got to eat. But if you don't wake up every day and love what you do and do what you love, you are going to be grinding it in life. You're going to feel like you're working every single day. And my mom gave me that advice many years ago. And that's why I've never left the career I'm in, because I truly love what I do and I do what I love. And by the way, if I would have chosen law enforcement as a career, even though it would have been tougher on my life, I loved it. Like, I absolutely loved serving my community in that way. So if I had picked that path as my only career, right? Same thing. I wouldn't feel like I'm working because I'm doing what I love, right? And so her advice was, if you love what you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, meaning you'll never feel like you're working. And so I would encourage younger people to take risks and just do what you like to do. Don't worry about what the world says is the right thing to do, what people care about you doing. Like, do what makes you happy, because you're the one that has to live in your career for the rest of your life to be able to provide for yourself and or a future family if you decide to have one. So
Yeah. That is incredible advice. Look, so Jeremy, I just want to say a huge thank you for coming on today. It's been amazing to hear from you, and I know all the listeners will benefit so much from your wisdom. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Farrah. Appreciate it.